This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Could someone confirm if you are able to hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we are able to hear you.
Okay, and can you also see my screen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, okay, thanks. All right, welcome everyone. Happy Republic Day. So today we are going to discuss, about Azure and DevOps training. Okay, so before I start, let me introduce about myself. My name is Kiran Kumar. You may call me Kiran. I have about 12 plus years in IT and more than 7 years as DevOps and SRE. This is a little outdated one. Anyway, um, so I worked with a global MNC as a senior DevOps engineer earlier. Now I'm working as a L3 DevOps engineer in a startup. Okay, love to train folks on technology, particularly the latest technologies, open source technologies. Okay, internally, I've given several trainings within the organizations I worked on DevOps technologies, Linux, and also on cloud. And I've been training folks part time. Okay, so that's about me. So let's talk about what this course actually is. Okay, so before we start the course, how many of you actually uh, really have heard about DevOps or have worked in some sort of what do you call a system administrative role earlier or an operations role?
Yeah, I worked on a little bit on DevOps side as well as infrastructure
Hmm.
manager.
Okay,
This is Ravi.
okay, Ravi, right?
Yes.
Okay, so, sir, could you explain what do you understand by DevOps from your understanding? I mean, there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, basically DevOps is build and deployment components. They used to do once development is deployed the code, checking the code, it will be build. To start from build and uh, um, check out, build, deploy, and target server. So in between we have we'll use a couple of tools, plus CI/CD tools, Jenkins for building purpose, Maven. All these
Hmm.
things they used to use. At the same time, they used to deploy that application, the tool to deploy the application on target servers. This
Yeah.
used to do DevOps activity actually, as far as I know.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So you're talking about the continuous integration and the continuous delivery thing. That's
Yes.
one of the aspects of DevOps. However, technology has been changing, and it's changing rapidly. Uh, we are evolving into a different microservice architecture from the earlier monolithic architecture. So things are changing. Anyway, not to confuse you with the jargon. So let's talk about what we are covering in this course. Okay. So you all might
Yeah.
have heard about cloud, right? So today, organizations are increasingly moving towards cloud, right?
Mhm.
So what is cloud? Cloud is nothing but an online provider of service. We'll talk about that in a minute. And we are learning about DevOps technologies. So we are going to implement all our tools within a cloud provider. Let's say in this course, we will talk about Azure. So we will use Azure as our infrastructure and we'll build our tools to learn DevOps technologies on top of it. Okay. So, any questions on that? So let me
Not
let
so
me
much.
rephrase that. So we are going to learn DevOps technologies, but to learn we are going to use Azure as our infrastructure. In that process, we are also learning Azure, hence the name DevOps with Azure. Okay. So we will
Okay.
learn Azure IaaS services, infrastructure as a service part. I'm going to explain that in detail in a minute. Okay. Any questions so far?
No.
All right. Good. Okay. Let's go on and look at what's cloud. Sorry.
So Kiran, Azure is already having Azure Cloud. Are you teaching that, or you are just teaching DevOps with the platform as Azure?
What do you mean by Azure? Yeah, so we will have to learn Azure because we'll learn uh, an operating system, Linux operating system. We'll learn a CI/CD tool, like Ravi has just said. We're going to learn software configuration management. So where do we learn all these things? It's not very easy to learn within your own laptop by creating virtual machines. So we're going to do all this in Azure, but for that we'll also learn Azure concepts. How do you build a virtual network? How do you create users? How do you create load balancers? So there's a lot of stuff to learn from Azure as well. So we'll learn Azure Cloud there. Does that answer your question?
What I'm saying is,
Hmm.
like say DevOps is something, Microsoft itself is providing, something called Azure DevOps, right? You're pointing
Okay.
to that, or you'll teach, DevOps as a separate tool. See, what I mean to say is something like, Microsoft may not use all the platforms as the free platforms, right? Maybe some it may not use it. You are going to teach cover all those things, or you are going to teach only Azure DevOps content, which is there in the which is provided by Microsoft. What is the actual course plan?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let me reshare my screen because I want to share a notepad as well. Mhm, mhm, mhm. Sorry, what's your name? I'm not looking at the
Oh,
GoTo
Venkat
Connect
here.
meeting. Hey, Venkat. Okay. So Azure, Microsoft has these offerings, right? So which has Azure. Underneath it, there are a lot of services. Okay. Even Office
Able
365 is sometimes.
It's very size is very low. It's not visible.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna explain. Just a second.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it better now?
No.
Okay.
Maybe others are able to see that. I'm not sure. For me, is this problems only for me or others also are facing this?
Yeah, it's normal. Full screen for me.
Okay. Maybe just maximize your screen. Uh, can I make it larger? Let me try.
Yeah, it's better.
Why isn't it getting larger?
Now I increase my screen.
Okay, all right, nice. Okay, so Microsoft Cloud, what it calls as cloud, offers a lot of services, including Office 365. Okay, um, there are other things like PAM, Privileged Access Management, Azure Cloud, actually. Okay, and then there is Azure DevOps. Okay, so that's the reason we are specifically calling this course DevOps with Azure. So within Azure, any cloud, you have three types of services. So IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Okay. So we'll talk about this in a minute. Okay. But Azure DevOps is again another tool, is a different tool from Azure Cloud. Okay. So like Ravi said, Azure DevOps, AZ DevOps was earlier called as VSTS. Okay. This is only a single tool, or you could say a package of tools. It has its own what do you call it? It has its own source code repository. Okay. Uh, it has its own build process or build tools. It has its own deploy tools. But this can be called as only one tool. Okay. So what is other equivalent sources, other equivalent technologies in market? We have Jenkins. Okay. We have GoCD. Okay. We have Travis CI. We have GitLab CI. Okay. These are some of the uh, alternatives that are available for Azure DevOps. So I'm not going to teach only Azure DevOps. I'm going to teach Azure Cloud. Again, within Azure Cloud, I'm going to teach IaaS. As a DevOps engineer, you would need to focus mostly on this part only. Okay. And on top, using the once we learn about how to create resources, how to use them, we are going to learn Jenkins. Okay. We're going to learn Ansible. We're going to learn, of course, Git. We're going to learn Linux. Okay. I know we are jumping the gun. I wanted to give introduction about cloud. Anyway, since you brought this topic, we're going to learn Docker. Okay. We'll have some update overview on Kubernetes. Okay. Very little update. I mean, just to give you an introduction to Kubernetes for your next journey. Am I missing something here? I think that's about it. Okay. So within the Azure again, within the IaaS part, what are we going to cover? We're going to cover networking, storage, virtual machines. Okay. So in our next class, we are going to talk about what's covered under each of these things. Okay. And that pretty much covers
Kiran, are you on mute?
No, we are not able to hear you. Kiran, we are not able to hear you.
Hello. So is this got disconnected or
Looks like.
yeah, I think
uh,
Kiran got disconnected or something.
yeah, he said he's reconnecting.
Okay.
Hello. Sorry, I'm back. Am I audible?
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, Kiran.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So where were we? Where did I cut off?
Actually, you are about to explain that IAS concept
Yeah.
Yeah,
what you are going to for next
So
class.
now do you understand Azure DevOps and Azure Cloud is different?
Yeah, we came to know that two different components. We have Azure outside also develop tools. At the same time, we
Yeah,
have other tools also in the market that we are going to be explained as part of this course, right?
exactly. Yeah. So Azure DevOps is confusingly is a confusing name, I would say, because Azure DevOps was earlier called as Visual Studio Team Services. If you ask folks who worked on .NET technologies, they will tell you this was called as VSTS or TFS. Okay,
Mhm.
Team Foundation Services. You might have heard of these, okay, or Visual Studio Team Services. So this was earlier named as, now named as Azure DevOps, but this has nothing to do with the Azure cloud as itself. But it makes it easier to integrate with the cloud. But doesn't mean that this is also a part of Azure offering. And I will be honest with you, Microsoft's documentation itself is confusing about these two relationship. But I'm clear about this. We are going to talk about Azure Cloud, and underneath it, we are going to primarily focus on infrastructure as a service, which means we are going to create our own virtual machines. We are going to create our own virtual networks, our own storage systems like file storage and disks and all that. Okay. And using that, we are going to learn all these things which are required for a DevOps engineer. Okay, so we're going to learn about Linux, Jenkins, Ansible, Git, and source code management, GitHub, Docker, and Kubernetes also. Okay, so
Uh,
Kubernetes, we're going to just give a introduction. That's like paving your way to the next technology milestone for you. But I'm not going to teach it in detail. Yeah, please go ahead.
Kiran, this is Ravi.
Yeah.
You are saying that using Docker and Kubernetes a little bit, right? So
Mm,
do you mean that a containerization also you're going to be covered as part of this course?
exactly. So Docker is that tool which we use to containerize, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to learn about containers, how to build container, how to build images, how to run containers. And
Mhm.
next, I'll talk about what is Kubernetes and what it does with the containers, so that you could, it's like, opening gate for your next technology target once you're good with your DevOps technologies.
One more doubt, actually, Kiran. Sorry to take
Yeah,
up
no,
your
no, go
question.
ahead, please.
Is this infrastructure DevOps or source code deployment DevOps talk concepts you are going to be? We have two,
So
I think.
that question we will answer in a minute, or rather, in a few slides. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
then you can make a call because I did not designate this in such a way. Let
Mhm.
me explain my perspective. You can, comment after that. Okay.
Mhm. Okay.
So for those who might be new to cloud, so what's cloud? Cloud
Kiran, are you
computing,
sharing your screen? We are not
Yeah,
sure. You're not able to.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot I reconnected. Just a second. Just a second. Any other questions while I get my presenter rights? You could ask about anything.
Oh, so that's what same question. If you have time, you can explain that is that infrastructure based DevOps or the code based DevOps you are going to be. You know?
Yeah, Ravi, just bear with me for the next few slides. You'll see what's in the course, and then you could take a call on it. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I'll explain my
And
perspective of DevOps. Hmm.
Ravi, sorry, Kiran, Venkat here. What is no monitoring? Any tool that you're going to explain on this, or do you have anything else?
Yeah, we will work on Nagios.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but I'll in general give an overview of what is the alerting and monitoring and alerting ecosystem in the production environments. But we cannot replicate all of those, due to the restrictions we have. I mean, we cannot set up a whole pager duty kind of setup. But I can teach you how it works in production. Okay, so yeah, let's start,
One
and we can
quick
take this
question.
question. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So in terms of certifications,
Hmm.
so like, does this course is covering the full certification, like the entry level certification, which the Azure is hosting? What kind of certification it can cover? Like the
Honestly, I'm not going from a certification perspective. I'm going from a perspective that someone is who has worked in a system administration role, or someone who is working in a production support role, should be able to grasp what is DevOps, okay, what are the technologies that are required, and how we can implement it. So, since this is DevOps with Azure and not an Azure course as such, I'm not really focusing on certification process. In fact, I'm focusing this course as something, or we as a career IT institute focusing on this course as something to get you to get you in a position where you could practice and go to an interview as a DevOps engineer, but not from a certification perspective. I could clear that upfront.
yeah. Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I could point you to some resources, and be assured from whatever we are learning in the Azure, that could give you a good starting point for your Azure 103. AZ 103 is the basic certification for Azure, administration. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Uh,
can we can have a separate session about certification maybe,
Sure. Sure.
what are
because
the
I haven't.
prerequisites?
Mhm.
Kiran, sorry to interrupt. What are the prerequisites that you look at from our side to learn this course?
So, as I said, I try to make it as basic as possible. At the same time, I also try to make it as you know not very detailed. I just sort of open up what's there to learn, and I give you tasks, and you need to pick them up. So, absolutely no expectations. I mean, you could be a complete beginner to IT world, okay, or you could be a fresh out of the college. You could still learn from this course. But only requirement is you need to have a good laptop. You should be able to install some tools, a couple of tools, not more than that. You should be able to complete your exercises, so that it makes my job easier to go into the next section of the course. Okay, but good to have if you have already worked in a system administration role. That's very good to have. If you have some sort of scripting knowledge like PowerShell or Bash Shell, that's even more awesome. You could also explain to other folks, but that's not even any blocker. I mean, if you don't have them, that's not even a blocker. We are going to touch upon all those things. Make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We have all these questions. I mean, I think I have put all this in my slide. We're going to see that in the later part of this one. Now, let's go forward. Okay. So, what is cloud computing? Cloud computing is the on-demand availability of computer resources without the
Still
direct
we are
active
unable to
management
see your
by.
screen.
Sorry.
Kiran, still we are unable to see your screen. I am unable to. I am unable to see
Uh,
your screen.
what about others?
I'm able to see a
Yeah, I
screen
can
called
see.
What's
I
Cloud.
can see the screen. Yeah, what's cloud? That particular slide I can see.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
That's
can
the
see that.
page I am on. That's the screen I am on. Okay. You might have
Maybe
to reconnect or.
try in that case.
Yeah. Sure.
Maybe
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Cloud computing is the on-demand availability of computing resource without the direct active management by the user. So what does it mean? Cloud is nothing but a collection of data centers managed by a cloud provider, and users can rent resources on a pay-as-you-use model without the upfront cost. Okay, so let's take a real life analogy. Okay, let's say I am a retailer or a wholesaler. Okay, so I have my analogy is comparison. I'm trying to compare with the real world. What's cloud and how it's beneficial for us and why organizations are moving towards it. Okay, I'll just give a short overview. Let's say I'm a retailer. Okay, and I have a go down and I use, let's say, 40% of my uh, 40% of my go down during most of the year. But from Jan to, let's say, April, it's a busy season, and let's say I'm using my 60%. Okay, but if you take this 40% is always empty. Okay, so then you're wasting 60% for 8 months and 40% for your most for the 4 months. Okay, so let's come to the computer analogy or IT world. So IT world, you use something called as servers, right? You use servers, and now there came a new system called as virtualization. Okay, so virtualization allows you to create multiple computer or multiple operating systems or multiple machines, which we call it as virtual machines on top of one physical server. Okay, so let's say you have a small web application. Let's say you are managing infrastructure for Flipkart, and let's assume you have 4 VMs. Okay, and your business decides to start what we call a big billion day. Okay, and the demand is going to be huge, right? So what you need to do is you need to buy additional hardware. You have to buy additional hardware, just double up your resources. Okay, and okay, and just new set of servers, right? So your big billion day lasts for like 7 days or 8 days, and once that's done, your demand comes down, right? Not everyone visits Flipkart on every other day, so your demand comes down. You don't have to have these many servers. So now what you do, you keep these servers in shutdown mode, right? You keep them in these servers in shutdown mode, but you still need to manage them. You still need to power up whenever you need to install updates. You need to make sure these are not rusted. You need to maintain cooling and all that stuff, right? And again, after 1 year, you will get big billion day, and again you have to power them up. But for the rest of the year, these are completely useless, right? Unused, not useless, unused. uh, so think about hundreds of servers. We are talking here only about 2 servers, but think about hundreds of servers. And also, let's take another scenario. Let's say I'm a very small entrepreneur. I have a simple idea to share my knowledge about some tool, and I don't want to share it on third-party tools. I want to share it on my own platform, my own web server. So for that, what you need to do, you need to get a web server, website. Sorry, you need to get your to run a website. You need to get your own servers. You have to make sure it is properly cooled, because websites are supposed to be accessible throughout the year, right? 24/7, 365 days. So you have to ensure there is a redundant power. What is redundant power? If one power connection goes, there should be a generator or a something that powers your system, or a battery that powers your system. And also there should be redundant network connectivity. For example, you trust Airtel, but Airtel goes down. Every systems go down, right? So then you need to have a redundant network connectivity to the server. So you need to also get Tata. So this is upfront cost. What is upfront cost? You will have to pay money before even you start your application. So what cloud has done is, okay, cloud has said you don't need to pay me anything. Okay, you just start building your servers, okay, and start using them, and pay once you are done for a month or whatever time. Okay, and let's suppose your demand is like this. In the day, you will need 3 web servers to run your application, but in the night, since you're an Indian site, you don't need 3 web servers. You'll need only 2 web servers. Okay, think about this in a real where you're hosting your own computers. I mean, where you're hosting your own servers, meaning you have built your servers, you have started them and all that. In that case, you have to turn this off, but that resource is still lying in your own data center. But what cloud does it will bill only for these 2 systems during night time, and in the morning when you turn this on, sorry, turn this back on, only then it will be charged. So you are only paying for the time you're using them. Suppose Jan to March, or Jan to April, you're using 4 servers. Okay, you'll be charged for these 4 servers only from Jan to March. In, let's say, in April, you cut down these 2 servers. You're running only these 2 servers to run your application. You'll only be billed for these 2 resources. Okay, that's one of the important aspect of cloud. It is on-demand availability of resources and on-demand deallocation of resources. When I say deallocation, just deleting the resource. Okay, so no matter, even if you're a small business or a medium scale business or a large scale business, there is a solution for you. Okay, and it almost gives you infinite scaling, meaning from 10 servers to 100 servers you can create within a few minutes, or a few hours, not more than that. Okay, so that's the power of cloud. And the second thing is pay as you go. You pay only for the resources you use for the time you use. So unlike, again, going back to the go down example, so what was our earlier premise? That we're going to use only 40% for most of the year, like 8 months we are going to use only this much, and for the rest of the 4 months we are going to use this much. So in cloud, what it does is, but in real world, what you do, you have to pay for this entire infrastructure, right? But in cloud, it says, okay, you're using 40% from, let's say, April to uh, December, then only pay for this 40%. You're not paying anything for the additional space, because that will be used by someone else. And from Jan to April, you're using this, then pay for this total only in Jan to April. Okay, and again, come May, you can just delete them, and you'll be only billed for the last section of your resources, only for this amount of resources. Sorry, my drawing is pathetic. All right, makes sense? Gives you an idea of what cloud is.
Yeah.
So we talked about resources, but what are these resources that are available in cloud? Okay, so for that, we need to understand. Yeah, let me see if I'm missing anything. Okay, yeah. So now we talked about cloud. Now let's come back to Azure. What is Azure? Azure is Microsoft's cloud offering. It is one of the leading cloud providers, only behind Amazon's AWS in market share and service offerings. So if you consider the market share, meaning the number of users using it, or service offerings. What is service offerings? The number of services provided by the cloud provider. You could say AWS is the #1 in the market today, and Azure is catching up fast, and it is almost close to AWS today. Okay, in terms of market share, in terms of service offerings. Google Cloud Platform and others or even IBM's cloud, these all are behind Azure. Okay. Um, so Azure's infrastructure is spread across the globe in 54 regions and 140 countries. Azure's services span various areas like virtual machines, storage, machine learning, IoT, big data, and security, and many more. Okay, so Azure offers services among all these domains. Okay, and let's take a look at this point. Azure's infrastructure is spread across the globe in 54 regions and 140 countries. What does that mean? So today you might be using cloud. For example, we all are using cloud from so long time. Let's take Gmail or Google Drive. These are all nothing but cloud storages, right? Cloud mails. Okay, because it's maintained by someone, we are just using those services. But underneath them, they should have some infrastructure, meaning they have to have real data servers, real storage, real hard drives. So if you look at Azure's infrastructure, it is spread across in 54 regions and 140 countries today. So they have their data centers in all these 140 countries, and you could call 50 region is nothing but like if you take South India, you would call it Asia Pacific something. They'll give some name for that. Okay, or if you take east coast of US, they'll call it as US East 1, US East 2, US West 1, US West 2. So each of region is nothing but a group of places. Okay, so that's Microsoft Azure. So any questions on what cloud is? I'm sure most of you might have already heard about cloud.
We are good.
Cool. Okay, before I go into what's covered in this course, let me give you a brief introduction, brief overview of what's in a cloud. So what do we need to have to run an application? I mean, it's open for questions. Open for your comments. What do we need to have when we need to run an web application? I need to open a web application like Flipkart. So what are the requirements for my application?
Infrastructure side you want, right? You mean infrastructure side or software side?
The entire stack, software, everything.
Okay. Yeah, so infrastructure side, you certainly need some hard disk, and then some sort of RAM, then what, depending on your application requirement, then CPU, whatever load you are expecting according to that. So CPU, number of CPU cores and all. So after that, you will certainly need OS on whatever system you are using. Maybe it is Linux box or Windows box, whatever it may be. Then web server. Web server, whatever you are going to use, Apache IIS or some other. There are. So on top of that, you will set up your application and supporting tools.
Right.
And
Brilliant.
now to have this in place, you might be using whatever tools you may want. So that's it.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's pretty much covers what I wanted to cover.
Gateway.
Sorry?
Load balancers, gateways, and private.
Brilliant. Yeah. Load balancers, gateways. What else?
Database servers.
Servers.
Okay. Data servers will be part of these three, right? Storage, RAM. So underneath servers, you will have, or you mean to say database software? Yeah, that will be covered under application software. Okay. Load balancer, gateways.
EDNs.
EDN. Sorry, I don't know what that means.
CDN.
Could you elaborate? CDN. Yeah, CDN. Yeah, got it. CDN. Okay. I heard it as EDN. Sorry. Yeah, CDN, content delivery networks. What else? Right.
Maybe
so
some
you
sort of
guys
monitoring.
Right. Monitoring is the next step. Okay. So you guys are brilliant. So network. Right. These are a part of network, right? Network infrastructure. So any application if I look at it, I would look at it this way. Your custom code, the code your developers build, okay, and the infrastructure. Okay. So we are not going to talk about development. So it's not the custom code we are talking about. We are talking about the infrastructure plus the app stack applications we're going to use. For example, we might be using Java code, but for to Java to run, we need to have a Tomcat or an Nginx or something, right? Okay. So we are going to talk about this part of the DevOps. So DevOps, yeah, I'll come to DevOps in a minute, but yeah, infrastructure plus applications, you got it right. So if you look at any, infrastructure, it would be divided into three parts. Okay, network, then storage, okay, then compute, okay, compute. So network, storage, and compute. And within storage, of course, we have HDDs, which is called as file systems. Then we have something like Google Drive or Azure Blob Storage, which is called as Blob Storage. Okay, so these three form the main part of your infrastructure, right? Compute, storage, and network. So we are going to focus on these three things, and we are going to talk about application software like Apache and maybe some Tomcat and all, and how do we take this custom code and build it into your push it into your infrastructure. Okay, and all those tools that are required. So today we are going to, even within Azure, we are going to focus on these three things, which I've already mentioned: compute, storage, and network. So within compute, what comes in Azure? Your virtual machine scale set, availability sets. There are a lot of other stuff. We'll talk about all these things. Okay. Within your network, you'll also have to have virtual networks and subnets. Okay. So these are what we are going to learn in Azure. Right. So let me go to the next slide and see what's covered in the course in detail. Okay, so we're going to cover identity and access management, networking, virtual machines, storage, monitoring. Okay, so what is the Azure default monitoring? We're going to take a look at that as well. This is not the system monitoring, but the Azure monitoring. Then we'll operating system, Linux administration. You might ask why Linux? Because Linux is the leading operating system for your servers in the world. Okay, so I can go on about GNU Linux or Linux in general, about why it's important and all that. You, but companies are increasingly using Linux, and also existing Windows users are also gradually moving to Linux. I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, so what are we going to learn within Linux? Linux system overview, file structure, process management, package management, networking, disk management. Sorry, I'm going a little fast. um, and then what we cover in DevOps, what and why, what is DevOps. Okay, then we will learn what is the tool chain, what are the ecosystem, what is the ecosystem that is available today. When I say ecosystem, what are the various tools available for DevOps. We're going to talk about version control, which is Git. Actually, I mentioned Azure DevOps, but I've received feedback that Jenkins is much better, given that it is open source and also largely used. Okay, so I will might have to modify this. Uh, but anyway, we are going to learn about source code management. We are going to learn about continuous integration and continuous delivery. Maybe we'll take a look at project management. We might use something like a Trello board. Okay. And next we'll learn about containers and orchestration. What are containers? What is Docker? And what is As I said, this will be again a very basic level. Kubernetes 101 sort of course, a sort of introduction. Then we'll talk about AKS, which is Azure's offering of Kubernetes. This will be also pretty much introductory. Okay. Next. Okay. So I haven't touched what's DevOps, but before that, one important trait of a DevOps engineer is to be able to automate stuff. So what are we going to learn within automation? So we're going to learn about ARM templates. We're going to learn about Azure CLI. We're going to learn about Terraform. Terraform is a tool to create infrastructure. Okay, and we are going to do Ansible software configuration management, which is part of software configuration. So you talked about these things, right? Once you have your server ready with all these things, you need to install web server application. We need to install some softwares like a DB software or Nginx or whatever. Okay, so all these things we don't do manually in today's world. Gone are those days when you SSH into a machine and deploy code manually. Now you'll use tools like Ansible to deploy code onto tens of machines at once. Instead of going into each machine and doing install something, you'll use tools like software configuration management, which is one of the tools is Ansible, and you deploy your code using automation. Okay, we're going to learn about Ansible. Okay, actually, this is even incomplete. I'm going to send you a document which has the detailed list of all the things we're going to cover. Okay, this still doesn't cover Jenkins. Yeah, sorry, I put in here, right? So yeah, maybe I should say, change this to just CI/CD, not Azure DevOps. Okay, make
Yeah.
sense? Any questions?
No.
Great. Okay, so let's take a step back. Now we talked about DevOps and Azure, but what is DevOps and what is the need for DevOps? Let's take a look. I'll try to cover it as soon as possible so that I can take your questions. So to understand DevOps and why it's needed, we need to understand agile model of software development. So agile is a software development methodology. Uh, what is software development and its life cycle? Let's understand that. Okay, so software development life cycle is the process used by IT organizations to plan, design, implement, maintain, test, and deploy software applications. The SDLC aim to produce a high quality software that meets or exceeds customer expectations. So this could be called as software development lifecycle or system development lifecycle. Any system, including your something like your Hyderabad Metro or a shopping mall, everything will follow a development life cycle, meaning there will be a process of first planning for it, then designing the actual unit, then you implement it, you start maintaining it, you test it. So when metro was built initially, there was only these empty trains running, right? That is a testing. Then you finally deploy it. Deploy it in the sense you open it for the public. Okay, so this is part of any system development life cycle, and software is also not very different from it. You first plan it, you design. So planning phases, you will say what I need a e-commerce website like Flipkart. Okay, so what are the other components I need a payment gateway, so on and so forth. Then you design. So you'll think about the tools that you want to use. So am I going to make it a PHP application? Am I going to make it a Java application? Okay, and what is my front end, what is my back end, what's the database that I'm going to use, what's the search engine I'm going to use, or what's the NoSQL database I'm going to use. Then you implement it. So you actually run a POC, you build a simple application for 10 users, then you start maintaining it, you test it, and finally deploy. Okay, so this is how it works: planning, defining, designing, building, testing, deployment. Okay. Okay. So traditional approach was what we call as a waterfall software development. Have you guys heard about waterfall?
Yeah.
So what waterfall does is it's basically something like this. So you first plan, okay, you design, you implement, okay, and you what's the next phase? You sort of test it, and finally you deploy it, right? So in the waterfall method, when waterfall design was followed, the plan, design, and implement stage. Suppose you have planned, you designed, and you implemented. You are about to test it. Then your client or business comes with a change in requirement. They say, no, 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 I think there should be a change in the design. I need something else and not this one. But in waterfall method, what people will say, the project manager will say, no, 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 we are already in this stage, implement stage. The next stage is to test it and deploy it, and only once you deploy it, it is running in, let's say, beta version or alpha version, only then we can go back and start designing again. Okay, that was the waterfall method. But come agile methodology, it's very what does agile mean in English? Plain English, agile means to be able to move faster with grace. I mean, you can move faster and be very zigzag way, but agile is to be fast and in a organized way, like a football player. Okay, so agile methodology is little different. So suppose you have planned and you designed and you came to implement stage, and your customer says or your business says, I need to change something in the design. So agile framework offers you that flexibility to go back to your design phase, okay, and again run an iteration, check it. If you think there is something wrong, you can still go back to design, and then you can move to test phase and go to deploy stage. So this offers you a lot of iterations. Okay, so that's agile. So I'll send this slide, you may read it, but I'm just giving you an overview of what SDLC looks like. So this is requirement stage, design stage, implementation, verification, and maintenance. I mean, you could call this planning. You can this design, implementation, verification is nothing but testing, then deploying or maintaining. Okay. So this is the waterfall methodology. So this doesn't offer much flexibility. So as I said, if you're already in staging, testing stage, and if you need to change in some implementation, you cannot go back. It's very rigid. Okay. So what is agile? Agile is to be, as I said, to be able to move faster and apply quick. And it will also tell you to start early, meaning even if you don't have all the features, it says first go ahead and implement whatever you have, whatever little things you have, first implement. Then we can see whether you can do a next change or not. Okay. So this is a little comparison between agile and waterfall. So it will go, it is a linear flow in waterfall, or exactly like water flow. It comes down only once you've completed in your first stage, only then you can go back. Whereas in agile, you can first analyze, plan, then design, build, and test, then deploy. Or if you want, you can do multiple iterations here. So you tested something, you find something is not good, you can go back to your design stage, again build it, and again test it till you're happy with the minimum viable product. So you got something that can go to market, then you can go to deploy. And in the next stage, again, you analyze how your current application is working, what are the bugs, what are the features you need to add, and then you can plan, you can design, and deploy. Okay, so I always give this example about you know SDLC, I mean waterfall versus agile. Let's think about WhatsApp today. Okay, so when was WhatsApp first launched? Hello, do I still have you all?
Yeah, not
Yeah,
not
go
sure.
ahead. 15, I believe.
Yeah,
15 or 16.
2013, 15. Yeah, it got popular in 15, but 2013, I guess, it's is when it's built. So uh, today is 2020. What all features we have today? It's only not only text message, image sharing. Okay, you have something called a status. You have voice messages. You have video, in-window video playing, right? When someone shares a YouTube video, you need not go to YouTube. It will play within the WhatsApp window only. Okay. There are a lot of other features, but if you people are old enough like me, you know that WhatsApp, when it was initially launched, it has only text. Okay, maybe later they added image. Okay, later they added voice. Later they added other features like status and all. Let's say WhatsApp initially, when they thought in 2013, they had only text. They did not have voice and all. Okay, so they thought, okay, maybe let's wait till all we complete all these things and launch at once. And instead of launching in 2013, let's say they launched in 2017 with all the features at once. Instead of launching only with the text feature and some image features, they waited for all these development to complete and launched in 2017. What would have happened? What would have happened today? We might not be using Telegram as the first level of communication. We might have been still using Google Hangouts or Telegram or WeChat. These all could have overtaken it. They might have come with only simple features like text messaging and image messaging, but they would have overtaken it if WhatsApp had waited to launch all these features at once. But instead, what WhatsApp thought, they would launch simply with text messaging. Okay, then eventually they'll keep on adding new resources, like new features, image sharing, status, and all that. So this is what agile methodology prescribes. Waterfall methodology prescribes this thing. You have to do all this once and then release. This is good for some systems, like non-software systems, like as I said, Metro. In Metro, you cannot compromise on some security feature or some. So you have to wait for all these to be completed and then launch it. So their waterfall methodology is good. But in software development lifecycle, you have that flexibility to start early and keep on iterating, keep on bringing new changes. Okay, Make sense what Agile is?
Yeah.
So it tells start early, go to market quickly, and on top of it, make new changes. Excuse me. So what is DevOps? Why do we have to get DevOps? Okay. So what happened? So people started in early 2000s, I guess there is this concept called as XP, extreme programming. Okay. That's when this agile came into process, and application development has sped up. So application development become faster now. People are developing software faster. So then came the need to also uh, create infrastructure faster, release your code faster. Just developing the code doesn't give you anything, right? You have to build that and also release it. So this part is was part of the ops side. So earlier, what used to happen? So let's say, or rather, I'll take a diagram. Let's say, oh, come on. Let's say I have my developer team here, okay, and my ops team here. Developer team are those who actually write the code, right? And this is my operations team who take this code and build it into servers. Let's say this is your infrastructure. So earlier what happened, developers would simply work in silos in their own space and start building code, and operations would know only when it came to a particular release stage. Then developer would say, hey, just take this code and deploy in your infrastructure. Okay. So till then ops team would be in the dark. They would not know what's happening. But what DevOps prescribes is that you need to work together from day zero. Okay. So that DevOps also knows that there is a product coming, and so is the technology that is being used. So uh, uh, infrastructure might be used in future. Okay. So now let's take a look at what DevOps actually means. So this is as per Wikipedia, but if you look at some of the definitions given by some of the DevOps gurus, it says DevOps is a methodology that combines software development with operations. The intent is to enable communication between the teams so they can build, test, and release software more quickly and with greater efficiency and speed. Okay, so DevOps and Agile are like two sides of the same coin, which is software release, complement each other and should not be viewed as distinct practices. While Agile emphasizes on being able to adapt to changing requirement, DevOps streamlines the continuous integration and continuous delivery process through shortening release cycles. What is shortening release cycles? For example, you have uh, built an application today. Uh, you should be able to release the next version in a shorter span. Like in next quarter, you have to have a major release. Not only simply fixing security bugs, you have to give some additional features. So that should happen within a span of 1 quarter or 2 quarters. So developers will develop code, but you should also make sure it is tested properly and deployed properly. So further, you need DevOps practices. Okay, so DevOps technically or theoretically means a set of cultural practices you need to bring within an organization. So you need to bring people together and say that, hey, you both will be part of this project. Okay, so you're going to, there might be a development team, there might be a testing team, there might be an operations team, but you tell them that you are all part of this project. You have all should be involved from day zero and start working. That's the DevOps mantra. And also it enables communication. As it says, you have to be sure about what's happening on the other side. Okay, so theoretically speaking, DevOps is not a role, meaning it's not a role like software developer. It's a culture. Theoretically, in pure terms, it's a culture that aims to create better coordination between development, QA, and operations and speed up software release with utmost quality. This is also very important part. Quality has to be maintained. However, in practice, there are job roles that are titled DevOps engineer. I mean, I've told you just a second ago that DevOps is not a role, but in reality, there are roles called as DevOps engineer. The primary aim of adopting DevOps culture is to build and release software quickly and maintain applications with high availability and resilience. What is high availability? Meaning, how often do you see WhatsApp going down? once in a quarter, right? So that means they have very high availability. They're only going down for a few minutes within a quarter or a few minutes within a year, not more than that. And what is resilience? Your applications go down all the time. No matter how well you build, even WhatsApp and Facebook go down, right? Mm, no matter how well you build, there might be a chances of the systems going down. So resilience is resilience means to keep your systems, I mean, to bring back your systems up. Even if they are down, even if your application is not working, you have to make sure it is brought up, meaning you have to restart the services or do whatever to bring the service up within very short time. That is resilience. So that's what DevOps aims at. Okay, so yeah, this is all good. Now we have talked only about taking the software to market, right? So the CI/CD part Ravi talked about initially, that's one part. But today, it's the era of automation. You don't want to have, so earlier there were roles like build and release engineer who would only focus on CI/CD part. Now it has changed. A DevOps engineer is not only responsible for building the code and releasing it to your servers. He's also responsible to uh, you know create the infrastructure, create the pipelines, create automation. All these things are done by DevOps engineers themselves. You won't hire another operations engineer to do these things. So that's why there is a change in ecosystem today. So let's take a look at that. But before that, any questions so far on anything like cloud or DevOps, agile
Yeah,
software development?
yeah, Kiran, just I have a question. Like
Sure.
here, DevOps role is a kind of intermediary role between developers and testers, kind of thing.
No, I wouldn't say that. A DevOps engineer is someone who works with both testing and development team, but not an intermediary role. If you say a lot of people combine QA and development team as part of one team, and they used to see operations as separate part. But those days are gone. Now if you're working on project, if you're working on a client engagement, let's say you have a client ABC. So
Mhm.
you three people together form the DevOps culture, DevOps team. But the primary role of DevOps engineer, as I said, is to ensure he build faster build and release pipelines. He ensures he has automation in place for any repetitive jobs. Okay,
Okay,
and I'll be if I have to be really practically correct, these roles vary differently from different organizations. Like Ravi said, some organizations might have only the build and release engineer called as DevOps engineer. Some organizations do not even have DevOps engineer. They have called something called as site reliability engineer. Okay, I think, yeah. So role similar to DevOps, site reliability engineer or cloud ops engineer. So I worked in organizations where DevOps is called. I worked in a part of DevOps, but they did not do all of these. They did only some part of it. I worked in some organizations as SRE, where we have to do from, as they say, a cradle to grave. So you have to build the infrastructures, build the pipelines, and also decommission it. So it varies from organization to organization, and also the technology stack could also vary. Meaning, some companies might use Ansible, some companies might use Chef, but if you're good with one of the technologies, that's good.
okay, fine.
Does
Yeah,
that answer?
thanks.
Yeah. Ravi, so
Yes,
to your
yes.
question, whether we are DevOps, infrastructure DevOps, or you know code DevOps, or rather build and release DevOps, I would say we are a bit of both, or rather we would aim to something like a site reliability engineer. My aim is to be my aim is to make that you we all should be able to be part of. Should be able to ready to attend interviews for either SRE or even DevOps. Okay,
Okay.
and particularly with the focus on cloud. Okay,
Okay.
so now let's take a overview of what actually what are, okay, right, we talked about DevOps being a culture and practice, but to implement that culture you need to have set of tools, right?
So, Kiran, I'm sorry to disturb.
No worries.
Uh, if you say interviews part, at what level will be there after completing this course?
No, I mean to say, when I say interview part, I mean to say you should be able to be learn these technologies and practice them so that you can attend interviews. But I can do a couple of mock interviews, not a big deal. Okay, is that
My
your
question is
question?
simple. My question is simple. Let's say, at what level of experience we can manage in interviews? That's what I mean to say.
So that's a very big question for me. I mean, it's totally up to you. See, there might be people who practice every day religiously. There might be people who think that okay, today I teach you Linux, and you think, huh, I know everything. Maybe I'll practice after 1 month, and after 1 month, when you open a Linux shell, you don't remember anything. So the person who practices every day and the person who thinks he can practice after the course, the teaching is same for both of them, but it's their effort, right? Still
Let's
confusing?
keep, yeah, let's keep it
So
that
let's say,
the student is practicing, but no, I'm asking like how many, how much he can put up through, like, as a beginner or as intermediate guy, or somewhere around.
I would say intermediate. You cannot. I mean, unless you have already some sort of system experience with any systems, like you might have managed Windows machines, or you might have managed Solaris machines. If you have some sort of experience like that, suppose if you are new to IT world itself, okay. If you are new to IT world, I would say put 2 to 3 years of experience only, and you have to justify that by practicing very well. If you're already working in something like a system administration role or an operations role, platform engineer, there are different roles, okay, or a developer or a QA engineer, you could put it in a more elaborate way because you know the infrastructure stack, you know what are the tools you worked, you could answer more confidently. So you could put all your experience as a DevOps engineer. For example, you worked as a QA engineer for 5 years, and then you practice very well what all is taught in this course. You also read. Then when you go to the interview, even if you say your 5 years of DevOps experience, they would definitely consider you. You should make them believe, yeah. So it depends upon your role. One thing, it depends upon what is your current role in IT world. I mean, non-IT includes project management, all that. Or if you're any sort of technical roles like QA, development, or production support, you could put more experience. But do not put it like 10 years or something, because DevOps was barely starting 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
so even if you're a fresher, even if you're a fresher, or rather say non-IT guy, and you could definitely put 2 to 3 years of experience as DevOps engineer, provided you practice thoroughly.
And Kiran, coming to the practice level, how we are going to be, practice this components what you are going to be cover. So it should be have a cloud account or something, or where we are going to be practice.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Okay, let's first come to my big slide, which
Mhm.
might look overwhelming. So from my perspective, this is my own view. Even in fact, I missed some things here. These are the components a DevOps engineer should have some sort of knowledge or expertise. First thing is infrastructure. We talked about building servers, right? So today we are building them on. Gone are those days when you take a physical machine and install VMware ESX and build virtual machines. Now you have to build VMs on cloud. But simply building VMs through console is not a great thing. You have to automate them. So for that, we have various tools like Terraform and ARM templates. So we are going to touch on Terraform, a little bit of ARM templates. Terraform because it's cloud neutral. It can works on Azure. It can works on it works on Azure. It works on AWS. Um, it works on Google Cloud Platform. If you learn from Azure, tomorrow when you learn AWS, you could also easily implement Terraform solutions there. Okay, and then as I said, once you build the service, you need to build some software configuration on top of it, meaning you have to install a DB server or an Nginx server. Then you need to use some sort of automation, which is software configuration. So Ansible, Chef, and Puppet are popular systems. We'll talk about Ansible. Okay, then your developer builds the code and give it to you. So when the developer gives the code, you have to build it into an executable form. And there are other tools. Okay, we are going to talk about Maven particularly. Okay, and then or rather, these both will be covered in your Jenkins. Okay, Jenkins will take care of both CI. CI is nothing but taking the code from all the developers, putting into as a single executable file. like a .var file or a .exe, .apk file to be executable. Then next part comes release deployment, right? Your developers have built a code or wrote the code and you build it into an executable file. Next thing is to deploy it on your servers. So we learn about Jenkins, how to set up Jenkins, how to push code and all that stuff. And the next part is monitoring and alerting. So how do you monitor and how do you alert? So in this part, we learn Nagios. But again, to your question, where do we learn all these things? On Azure Cloud. On which operating system we do all these things? Linux. Okay. And we also will talk about source code management, which I did not mention, unfortunately, which will be the block, which will cover all these blocks actually. So source code management, I'm talking about Git and GitHub. Okay. So these are the things we're going to learn. So we're going to focus on Terraform, we're going to focus on Ansible, we're going to focus on Jenkins for CI/CD, and your source code management will be Git, and monitoring we'll focus on Nagios. Any questions? So Ravi, to your question, it's mix of both infrastructure DevOps and also CI/CD DevOps. From my perspective, a DevOps engineer should be able to do everything.
Mhm.
And you might think that this is really overwhelming. How can I learn so many tools in so short time? Okay, so one thing, good thing is you have online course, so you will have videos for your you can get the videos even if you miss some classes or if you want to go back on those classes. One part is that. Second part, no one is expert in all these things in today's DevOps world. Everyone has their areas of expert. So if you like in Terraform a lot, so you could focus a lot of your energies on Terraform and learn Ansible to an intermediary level and Jenkins also to an intermediary level and get some understanding of and get very good understanding of cloud. So let's suppose you're an expert on cloud, Azure and Terraform, and you're good with Ansible and Jenkins, that should land you a job. Or you find you want to become an expert in Linux. I only teach like pretty much not the in-depth into Linux, but how to get started for a DevOps engineer. So if you want to get more in-depth into Linux and you learn everything, or you already know Linux well, so you could put that as your USP, that your expert is in Linux and cloud. So you should be an expert in 2 to 3 areas and a good knowledge in other areas. That will definitely fetch you a job. So if I were an interviewer, I would look what is his strength and is it one of the requirements for my company. Okay. And also you need not learn all the technologies. For example, I'm a company which uses Chef, but when I interview you, you're good with Azure, you're good with Terraform, you also know Ansible. When I ask you questions about software configuration management, you answer me very well. So then, even if you don't know Chef, I'll say, okay, I can consider this guy. He will get onto Chef within no time. He will learn Chef within no time and get onto the job. Okay, so that's how you should aim your preparation as well if you're looking for a career change, or if you're someone who is already doing the CI/CD process. You could put your existing experience, like if you're working on VSDS or Azure DevOps or GoCD, you could use your existing experience. On top of it, you could say I have cloud experience and I have Terraform, and you can build on top of it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, as I said, there are roles similar to DevOps, which would be SRE, Site Reliability Engineer, and a Cloud Ops Engineer. In some organizations, SRE might not even touch CI/CD. They are responsible only for infrastructure and monitoring and automating all the other stuff. Okay. Okay, to sum it up, cloud gives the organizations the ability to provision or decommission resources in a matter of few minutes. Meaning you can build 15 to 20 servers in no time within a few minutes, and you could also destroy them in a few minutes. Okay, that's cloud. So that is making software releases faster, applications going live faster. What is DevOps? DevOps is a combination of people, culture, and tools that aims to make software delivery faster and efficient with high quality and security. When organizations adopt DevOps practices along with cloud, they get the most of their investment with frequent and quality software release. So when you combine DevOps with cloud, okay, so you could have DevOps practices on your own premises. On premises in the sense you have your own maintaining your own servers. But when you go with the cloud, because cloud has that reliability and fastness, you could reduce your buck and you could be a very good software company. So to be effective as a DevOps practitioner, one needs to not only have thorough knowledge and tools, but also understand the software development lifecycle and IT operations. And another thing is automating repetitive tasks and creating repeatable and modular tools. What is repeatable means? Today you're working for client ABC and you build some automation tools. Tomorrow, if client XYZ comes, I should be able to use these tools by making smaller changes. With little modifications, I should be able to use the same automation. That is repeatable. What is modular? To keep everything in a module base of thing. Like you have to differentiate each block. You should not write one big file with all the code. Instead, you should write smaller chunks. So you know modular, right? What is modular kitchen? Earlier we used to have one big shelf, put everything there. Now we have modularized into putting things into separate blocks. So should be your tools. Whatever code you write should be modular. That is the key characteristic of a DevOps engineer. Again, this is purely from my experience and my understanding. You might have a different view, and I'll definitely not disagree with that. Okay, so this course aims to cover the key services in Azure and prominent DevOps tools to add the right skills to your resume and help you become a resourceful candidate for the DevOps or CloudOps role, including SRE role as well. So that's my demo and open to questions.
And again, the same question for Ravi. So lab practical things, how you are going to cover
Hello.
duration of the course.
Oh yeah, I thought I had a prerequisites course. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
So you're talking about the practice, right?
yeah. Practice and duration of this
Okay.
course.
Yeah, duration would be 45 days, 1 hour each, or sometimes it might spill to 1 hour 15 minutes. Okay, based on our flow, we don't want to break our flow, right? So I'm not sure if we have talked upon the time. Maybe tomorrow we'll come up with the time slot. 45 days, but rest assured it will spill up to 55 days to 60 days because we are all humans. We take breaks. Sometimes I might take breaks because of bad health in my family or whatever. So it might move to 55 days to 60 days, but 45 classes is what we require for each of these courses.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, and so this is buffer. 55 days is buffer. Okay. uh, Next, what next question?
Lab,
Your lab,
lab,
right?
lab.
Lab. Yeah, good question. So if you have, just give me a second, guys. I have a call to take.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So lab. So if you have your own machine, if you want to install Linux on it, nothing like it. But I don't expect everyone to have a Linux laptop. So Azure offers 1 month free subscription. Unfortunately, Azure offers only 1 month. AWS offers 1 year free subscription. Okay, so it comes to around 13,000 rupees. 13,000 rupees of course of resources. So each resource will cost you money per minute. Some resources will cost you per day or per month. So this should be sufficient for us for 1 month. So you can practice all these. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah. Yeah, Kiran, go
Yeah,
ahead.
thanks. Yeah. So this should be sufficient for 1 month, but our course might spill up to 45 days. So and also post the course also you need to practice before you go to your interview. So I would say create a backup account. One bad thing about Azure is it will ask only for CC credit card. So find a friend or ask your spouse's credit card or do whatever, but try to have a backup account. So first you create one Azure account, use it for 1 month, then in the next month wait for 5 days or 6 days. By the time you could get some practice on your own machines as well, or use some virtual machine tools. and create another account, and you could continue practicing. Right? I know this is not really uh, great offer, but and another feature is if you have friends who are working in Microsoft or any big organizations, they might have Azure free subscription. You might have to borrow, beg, do anything. Okay, that's one part. All right. Um, okay, so let's say the second option is not working for you. Second option is not working for you. Then what you need to do is we have to complete all the courses within Azure within the first month, and in the second month, not a very good choice, but you could use your own laptop and create some VMs on top of it to learn tools like Ansible and Jenkins. You cannot learn Terraform, for example. Terraform has to be learned on Azure only because we are learning automation for Azure. Okay, so let's try to put all our Azure practice within the first 1 month, including Linux practice as well, because all the VMs are going to be Linux ones. So I'll cover most of the networking, storage, and virtual networking part, virtual machines part in the first month itself. Okay. Uh, we can use our laptops to install virtual machine to learn Ansible and Jenkins. And next part, what was that? Yeah, prerequisites. What are the prerequisites? Any questions so far on the lab part? Guys, you need to have a credit card.
Yeah,
If you're a guy,
I
someone
can.
who, if you're a person who never uses credit card, make sure you get your friends or something. It is not auto charged, be assured. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi Karan, this is Sagar. This is Sagar.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm basically from SQL DB SQL background. I'm working as a SQL DB
Hmm.
administrator. Uh,
Hmm.
and I'm frankly speaking, I'm very I often use coding, but I don't know how to write coding also. Can I? I mean, how can I prepare for this course? I mean, DevOps.
So you used a right term. Could you please mute yourself? There's a background noise. Yeah, thanks. So we are all coders. We are not programmers. So there's a slight difference. Programmer is someone actually begin with the basic code. Coders are someone who copy paste and use it. I mean, that's my definition again. Uh, so we use a lot of typing. We need a lot of typing, but we don't write code. We take existing code, modify it, and implement it. That's it. So you don't need to know code, but it's always good to have that logical approach of a developer. Like what is a if loop, what is a for loop? I can do this again and again. So these are the questions that you need to automatically get and automatically answer and all those things. So even if you don't know any level of programming, any level of scripting, it's okay. Uh, I mean, it is time taking. My experience from the past courses is it has pushed other things into the background, but I teach a little bit of bash scripting. But without bash scripting, what is a DevOps engineer in my perspective? Okay, I'll teach a bit of bash scripting, maybe one class. You should I can give you some practices to practice, and I mean tasks to practice, and you can build on your scripting skills. Ansible again is written in a language called as YAML. Terraform is written in a language called as HCL, HashiCorp language. But you don't need to learn anything new. You just need to copy paste and make modifications. I'll teach all of that. Again, Docker files you write in simple key value pairs, something like YAML. Okay. Okay. Kubernetes again, YAML. So YAML is not a programming language. This is simply a data serialization language. We'll learn about this. I'll take some 15-20 minutes in one of our classes to let you know what YAML is. And when we learn Ansible, you'll know how to write Ansible files and you can practice on them. Right. Before the time runs out, I mean, we are already over time. What are the prerequisites? Laptop, no phone. I mean, you could connect to my calls on the phone, but no use. Sorry, not interview. Internet, admin rights. Meaning you should be able to install some software on top. What is the software I need to you to install? If you're using Windows machines, I'm sure most of you are using Windows machines, Git Bash. If you're Mac, there's nothing new to install. And a code editor like Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code Editor or Atom, whatever you prefer. Code Editor, okay. This should be good. You need to make some small configuration changes. I mean, just create some files within laptop. Of course, Azure subscription, preferably backup account. Guys, so folks, try to reach out to as many friends as possible whom you know are working with Microsoft projects or anything, and ask if they have Azure subscription, so that initially you can use their subscription and later you can start your own free account. Okay, I know it's not a very good thing, but unfortunately Azure offers only 1 month subscription. They're stingy in that matter. Azure subscription and willingness to
Kiran, sorry
learn
to
and
interrupt you.
yeah,
Kiran garu, sorry to interrupt you. Hi
no
everyone,
worries.
Small info from Career IT. Batch is starting from 3rd Feb onwards. That is the next Monday, not tomorrow. The next Monday onwards. So for other, and we'll keep in touch with you. We'll be sharing other details as well. So please make yourself free by that time. Thank you. And if anyone
Thanks, Lakshmi.
is missing the today's demo, like if anyone is connected a little late, you can join the demo again, which we are going to have next Saturday. Thank you.
Yeah, if you have joined today's demo, don't join that demo because that will be repetitive. Yeah, so these are the prerequisite, guys, from my end. Laptop, internet, and admin rights on your laptop. You need to install Git Bash and a code editor, Azure subscription, okay, and willingness to learn and practice. That's it. These are the prerequisites for this course. And my preferred way is for any communication is create a Slack channel. You might have heard about Slack, and talk on that. Slack channel is like a communicator tool, just like your WhatsApp or Telegram with better features. So I can create a Slack channel and add you all. You can ask your questions to one or in a group, and we can discuss that there. Telegram or WhatsApp generally, uh, but yeah, Slack group we always can use Slack groups, Slack channels. In that way, you will also get to use how small companies or even large companies use communication. Okay, any other questions? This need not be laptop. Let me put it as computer. Even if you have a desktop to practice, that's fine. But if you have a laptop of your company and you don't have you have limited rights, then that's something you need to be concerned about. I mean, something you need to look after. Maybe find a old laptop and anyone using Mac or a Linux personal machine here, personal computer.
Yeah.
Mac.
No, Linux machine. I'm using Linux.
Oh, awesome. Which distro are you using?
Sorry?
Which distribution are you using?
Distribution means
Ubuntu,
exactly.
Ubuntu
It's
or yeah.
so like like Ubuntu.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I myself use Debian on my computer. I can
Okay.
customize it and use it as per my requirement.
Okay.
All right. If you don't have any questions, we can wind up here. Meet
Yeah.
next.
Kiran, just one final
Yeah.
question. How is the market for DevOps engineer in general, and how is the market in Hyderabad?
So DevOps is definitely one of the niche skills that the market is looking today. One of the top level skills that market is looking today. And I'll tell you from my past experience when I worked in an MNC, when I tried to move out from there, people started. I mean, there were interviews. That was like 1.5 years ago. Uh, there's a lot of skill gap. People used to come with some skills, but a lot of people missing the entire DevOps framework. So we had to do a lot of interviews. Recently also, when I moved out from my previous organizations, there also people gave me the same feedback. It's difficult to find resources with the right skills. So there are a lot of people who are trying to get into DevOps, but not with the right approach. So there is demand, also there is supply, but the quality is where it is missing. So if you could practice well and study and be prepared, there's a good chance you could land in a job. Okay,
Okay.
there's good demand, but if you ask me about the entire IT demand itself, I cannot comment. Yeah, within the IT world, there is definitely strong requirement for DevOps engineers. You could also open LinkedIn and see some job requirements for DevOps in Hyderabad or Azure engineer or Cloud Ops. You could see some job opening requirements, and you'll see most of these tools we've discussed today. Okay, and with something like Docker, which is an emerging technology, and with some idea of Kubernetes, because organizations are moving towards Kubernetes. If you could convince that you know about Kubernetes, not in depth, but you have an idea, they might definitely look at it. So we are looking at DevOps not only from the simple CI/CD part or simple infrastructure part. We are trying to take it to the next level with containers. Okay, so these are some of the niche skills like Kubernetes and Docker. Yeah, as I said, I'm not going to go in depth into Kubernetes because it's not aimed for an expert course, intermediary course. So I'm only focusing on the basics, but you could build on top of it and write that in resume. Kubernetes is very niche skill, guys. That should be your next aim once you're good with these technologies.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Kiran. And
Yeah,
one
you
more final
my
question.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Currently, I'm working as a QA engineer. So, how this course or profile is going to value addition to my current profile?
So there are two ways you could do. One you could go still as a QA engineer, but with knowledge on containers and CI/CD. Okay, that
Okay.
might. I'm not sure how the market works. Or you could say, I initially joined. How much is your experience?
10
Sorry,
plus.
10
10
plus. So you
plus.
could say initially, yeah, in the current organization you're working.
Sorry. In the current organization, I'm working as QA automation engineer.
No, how many years?
In the current are in 3+ years of experience.
3+ years. Okay, so you could say I joined as a QA engineer, worked there for like 1 year. Then I got an option to move into DevOps, and from the last 2 years, I've been doing DevOps engineering. Okay, and this is my skill set. These are my projects I've worked. So that's another
Okay.
approach. Okay,
Okay.
so you could go as a Q. Now I'll tell you. In the previous organization I worked, it's a pure ML machine learning company. So they needed DevOps engineers, sorry, QA engineers, not to be good with QA tools, but also containers and Kubernetes. So in that organizations, you can go as a QA lead as well, or a QA administrator as well, or a QA engineer. Sorry, but if you want to change your career role, then you could definitely say something like this. I've joined as a QA engineer initially, but there was an opening for DevOps. I learned these tools on my own. Now I'm part of DevOps, and I've learned additional tools. You could say these things.
Okay.
But how well you
Okay.
can convince is based on your practice and your confidence.
True. True. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks. That answers
Any
my
other question?
questions.
Yeah,
Thank you
you're
so
welcome.
much.
Any other questions? All right, then we'll call it off here. And thank you all for attending. And looking forward to meet you all in our first class.
Thank you, Viram. Thank you for the information. You shared a lot of things.
Sure, my pleasure. You all have a good Sunday and happy Republic Day again.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, Kiran, for the invitation.
Okay.
Bye bye.